There is silence, but this is not peace. This silence came after something broke. Is this a moment between a father and a son, or a crime history tried to bury? Can a man be at his most powerful and his most fragile at the same time? If a ruler can raise his hand against his own blood, where does authority end and madness begin? Why is there no crown in this image? No throne? No victory? Why is there only fear? What are those eyes seeing? Regret? Shock? Or the realization that it's already too late? If this really happened, why was it whispered instead of spoken? Why was it hidden for centuries? And the most unsettling question of all, if absolute power were placed in your hands, would you be certain you would act differently? This is not just a painting. It is a moment of frozen truth captured by Ilya Repin. And this silence is louder than any scream. Before this moment of silence, there was a man the world feared. His name was Ivan the Terrible, the first ruler in Russian history to call himself Tsar, not king, not prince. Tsar, a title meant to echo Caesar. Ivan was brilliant, highly educated, deeply religious. But from childhood, he learned one lesson above all others. Power comes from fear. Orphaned young, raised among nobles who abused and mocked him, Ivan grew up watching betrayal closely, and he never forgot it. When he finally took power, he ruled with intelligence and with terror. He created the Oprichnina, a secret force loyal only to him. They wore black. They answered to no law. Cities were destroyed. Families vanished overnight. Executions became public spectacles. Ivan believed enemies were everywhere, in nobles, in advisors, even in his own family. Paranoia became policy. Suspicion became law. Yet despite everything, there was one person Ivan trusted more than anyone else. His son, Ivanovich, the heir, the future of the dynasty, the only man he believed could continue his rule. And that is what makes what comes next so terrifying. Because when power is built on fear, even love is never safe. And in a single moment of rage, Ivan would destroy the very future he was trying to protect. What happened next would haunt Russian history forever. Ivan the Terrible, Russia's first Tsar, feared, obeyed, a man who lived in constant suspicion. According to historical sources, Ivan struck his own son, Ivan Ivanovich, during a violent argument. Some accounts say it was with a staff. Others say it was a furious blow in rage. The details differ. The outcome does not. The son died a few days later, and with his death, Russia's future slipped into darkness. The moment we see in the painting is a single second frozen in time. Ivan the Terrible is holding his son, but this is not an embrace of love. It is the weight of delayed regret. The Tsar's eyes show everything. Fear, pupils stretched wide with madness. The unspoken question, what have I done? The son no longer resists. His hand is limp. His body is heavy. Blood spills onto the floor. This painting does not scream. It whispers. And that whisper is far more terrifying. The Moscow Kremlin. This was not just a family argument. It was the moment when years of fear finally exploded. Ivan the Terrible, Russia's first Tsar, feared, suspicious, a ruler who saw enemies everywhere. According to historical accounts, during a violent confrontation, Ivan struck his own son, the heir, Ivan Ivanovich. Some sources say it was with his staff. Others claim it was a blind blow of rage. The details are disputed. The outcome is not. The son did not die immediately. He survived for several days, in pain, weak, and then he was gone. That is when the Tsar awakened. The rage faded. Horror took its place. Ivan held his son, saw the blood, and understood something irreversible. He had not struck just a man. He had struck the future of Russia, because the man who died was not an ordinary son. He was the heir, the continuation of power. After his death, the throne passed to a weaker successor. The line of strength was broken, and that fracture would later drag the country into chaos. Historians still debate this moment. Some ask, was it truly murder? But one truth remains unchanged. If this happened, it reveals the darkest face of authority, because power built on fear always turns inward. Sooner or later, it strikes its own blood, and that is why this moment was never forgotten. This is not just a family tragedy. This is the tragedy of power itself. When this painting was first shown to the public, it caused immediate shock, not because of blood, not because of violence, but because of what it suggested. In late 19th century Russia, authority was sacred. The Tsar was meant to appear strong, untouchable, unquestionable. And then came this image, a ruler not as a hero, but as a broken man. Officials understood the danger immediately. This painting did not attack one Tsar. It questioned power itself. It showed that absolute authority does not guarantee wisdom, or control, or morality. It showed that fear can destroy even those who wield it. Government figures feared the message. They said, "This painting undermines respect for authority." In reality, they feared something else. If people see that a Tsar can fail, they may stop fearing Tsars altogether. The painting was removed from exhibitions, labeled harmful, restricted from public view. And the fear did not stop there. In 1909, a man entered the gallery and attacked the painting with a knife. He claimed the image insulted the Tsar, that it dishonored Russian history. The damage was severe. The artist, Ilya Repin, was devastated. He personally helped restore the work. But by then, the truth was clear. This was no longer just a painting. It had become a battlefield. Because art that only decorates is never censored. Only art that exposes something dangerous is. This painting was banned not because it showed death, but because it showed that unchecked power can collapse from within. And that idea was far more threatening than any blade. Years after the censorship, the painting faced something worse: violence. In 1909, a man entered the gallery calmly. He stood in front of the canvas. And then, he pulled out a knife. Without warning, he slashed the painting multiple times. The attack was not random. The man later claimed that the image was offensive, that it humiliated the Tsar, that it insulted Russian history. But the truth was simpler. The painting was dangerous because it showed power not as glory, but as guilt. The damage was severe. The canvas was torn, the image mutilated. When Ilya Repin heard what had happened, he was devastated. He came to the gallery himself. He helped restore the painting with his own hands. Witnesses said he worked in silence, because by then this was no longer about art. This was proof. Proof that the painting still frightened people, still provoked loyalty, rage, and fear. A harmless image is ignored. A beautiful image is admired. But an image that threatens belief is attacked. The knife did not destroy the painting. It confirmed its power, because more than 20 years after its creation, this image was still capable of making someone lose control. And that is when art becomes history. In the end, this painting leaves us with no answers, only questions. It does not tell us exactly what happened that night in the Kremlin. It does not ask us to judge who was right or who was wrong. Instead, it asks something far more uncomfortable. What happens when fear becomes a system? What happens when power is never questioned? Because in this image, the tragedy is not only the son, the tragedy is the father, a man who ruled an empire but could not rule himself. The crown meant nothing in that moment. The title meant nothing. Only the consequence remained, and perhaps that is why this painting survives. The canvas is silent. But if you listen closely, history is still warning us. And the question it leaves behind is simple. If power were absolute, would you be certain you could control it?